everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Grimm Reader. I am Kathy Grimm, and today I'm going to tell you about what I'm going to be reading for Jane Austen July. Yes, I am participating in a readathon, which is something I don't normally do, but for reasons and because I thought it would be interesting for me, an older reader, to reconnect with Jane Austen, whose novels I read a long time ago. I did reread Persuasion a couple of years ago, and I still loved it, but I wasn't as sort of in love with it as I thought I would be. But I think it was just, I'm not sure why. I think when I read them, most of them a while ago, and I've probably reread them too, I don't even remember, this is a long time ago. But the novels have imprinted they're on I do remember them quite well, more so than other books that I've read. And so I kind of haven't really felt the need to reread. But Jane Austen July has some interesting challenges, and I thought it would be fun to reconnect with all you Jane Austen lovers too, a little bit, and kind of give you my perspective, which is that of an older reader, that of someone who has lived in different places. I read all my Jane Austen while I was in Germany, still, my 20s. And I probably did some rereading of her since I've been in the States, which has been for a very long time now, multiple years. And one thing I do like about Jane Austen in July, or Jane Austen July, is I've seen videos from Petra in Finland, I think, and of course Claudia, who I actually had the pleasure of meeting when I was in Germany in June, earlier this month, I think, and so the German contingent of Jane Austen, and of course England and America and probably Australia and other places in the world. So she has a kind of international reach because she's so famous and beloved. So that's kind of cool. Let's get into the challenges, and I'm kind of going to interweave this by showing you my editions that I have. Why not I start with that? So for one of the years I was kind of into pretty books, and so I got this edition. This is all of them, and they're interesting, but they're not, for one thing, they're not annotated, which I kind of miss, and they're kind of interesting. I don't know if anyone else has this edition, but it's sort of like squishy almost. It's a kind of and it's called the Word Cloud edition, and they are very pretty with pretty inserts, and it's definitely a pretty book. But no annotations whatsoever, no introductions, not like the Penguins or anything. But they actually are very nice thing to own. And so yeah, I have them. That's my first set of Jane Austens. I'm looking just kind of out of intrigue of kind of looking at the Northanger Abbey one, very pretty, with little quotes on the front. And this kind of squishy, oh look at the pretty, very pretty. So let's talk about the challenges. Read one of 6 Jane Austen novels. So the one I'd want to reread, because it's kind of been the one that's the least imprinted on my brain, is Sense and Sensibility. And so I'm kind of looking for it over here. No, that's not it. Where is it? I don't know. This one. Must be this one. And so, but on the other hand, I am kind of intrigued by the read-along. So I might just read along with Pride and Prejudice. And I have other copies of that, so let's get into it. So I have this interesting edition, which has sort of front stuff. It has some pictures, and it has kind of stuff about Regency life, geographical settings. And I have read it a couple of times. I've listened to it as an audio. I've seen the shows. I actually kind of like, now this is a sign of how old I am. So before the 1995 version with Colin Firth being Darcy, there was a 1980 version that I have kind of found on YouTube, which I thought was actually pretty good. Very, very sort of by the book. No, not like the new Persuasion trailer, which we won't talk about. But I like that one, so the 1980s. So one thing I could ask my viewers, from before or now, what is your favorite Jane Austen movie or series adaptation? As I recall, the Sense and Sensibility was very good with Emma Watson and Kate Winslet. That actually would be worthy of a rewatch, I think. So that's actually one of the prompts too, is to watch this direct screen adaptation of Jane Austen. Next prompt is to read something that's not one of her major novels. So I'm going to reach over here. See how well organized I am? Not that well organized. To my other copies of Jane Austen. So, and I think there's a read-along of Lady Susan happening. So I will just dip into this one and see how it goes. I'll start with Lady Susan. Maybe I'll do that read-along too. That's starting mid-month. And one thing I haven't really figured out with the read-along is there a place for us to talk about things, or do we just read along and then talk on our channels or something? I don't know. So yeah, there's that. Number 3 is read a nonfiction work. So I had downloaded onto my iPad or Kindle the Claire Tourmalin, I think is her name, Claire Tourmalin biography of Jane Austen, which I already started on and which is good. It seems to be quite good, quite readable. There's so many things that the other people have talked about. So nonfiction about Jane Austen. I'm kind of gonna put on my scholarly hat, such as it were. I'm not really a scholar anymore. But I might dip into the Google Scholar and see what kind of articles there I find that are of interest to me regarding Jane Austen. Kind of what I did with Victober, and I did that. One thing I'm interested in is reception. Like how is she received in, for example, Germany? I mean, people read her there, but I'm not sure. I don't know. And of course, the only German connection I can think of that sort of jumps to one's mind with Jane Austen is Mansfield Park, when they put on the play, which was an English adaptation of a play by August von Kotzebue. Kotzebue is an interesting peripheral figure in German history that I can tell you about another time. I won't bore you with the details because it's kind of political. And he was assassinated, and all kinds of interesting things happened with Kotzebue, August von Kotzebue. And he wrote, it wasn't called Lover's Vows, it was called Kind der Liebe, I think, Love Child or something. I don't know, I'll have to look it up. So that's, and of course, you know, if you know the plot of Mansfield Park, they put on this play and Fanny doesn't like it, and other people don't like it, but it's a sort of a wonderful plot device to get people together. Austen is really a mistress of putting people in situations where they have to deal with each other in interesting ways. It's just one of her many strengths. Let's see. So that's number 3. Number 4 is a retelling of a Jane Austen book. I'm not really into that so much. Or a work of historical fiction set in Jane Austen's time. Now that's much more up my alley, although I'm going to be a bit weird here, because the choices I have picked out for myself are very ambitious for me, because I'm a slow reader. So if I do read this tome, it's going to take me a while. And so this is another German book. Sorry, guys. I'm the Grimm reader, and I am a German professor. So it's the German writer who's not that well known in the English-speaking world. So tell me if you've ever heard of Theodor Fontane, a 19th century writer later than Austen. He didn't start writing until kind of mid-century, but then he wrote a lot. He's very prolific at the end. And this is his novel called Before the Storm. And it's sort of a historical novel for him because it takes place in the years 1812 and 1813. And so it's supposed to be a glimpse, snapshot of what was going on in Germany and Prussia, specifically around Berlin, before the sort of coming together of all the powers to get rid of Napoleon, the big fight, the big struggle, the big battle. So it has a kind of war and peace type from a German perspective. But I think it's different from War and Peace. Well, maybe not. I mean, he's very good at what I call society novels, but this will have more of the war stuff in it, or preparing for war, because it's before the storm. And I've always wanted to read it, because I think I would really love it, because I love Fontana. Fontana, his most famous work, in case people know or don't know, is Effie Briest, a kind of Madame Bovary of the German style. So it's a little bit more gothic. It's kind of interesting. It's really, really good book. I love Fontana. He's a great writer, I think. So that would be an option. Now, I'm not that prepared, so let me just turn around for my second weird option for retelling or historical fiction, or something to do with connected to Jane Austen's dates, which are 1775 through 1817. She died very young, in her early 40s. And the other one I was thinking is another book I've always wanted to read by Hannah Arendt. So this is nonfiction, so it's kind of stretching it, but it's about a German salon lady who had a literary salon, Jewish, and she's a German Jewish salon leader, Rahel Varnhagen, and this is her life story. And her dates were pretty much the same as, a bit longer than, maybe she's older than Jane Austen, but it starts at 1771 and it stops 1833, so beyond her life, but it sort of spans her life. And it's all about her. And I think it might be interesting to read this while reading Jane Austen stuff, because you get the kind of, intellectual Jewish stuff going on in Berlin, but at the same time. So it's sort of paralleling, and we'll have and it will be completely different because it's about, different people, but also kind of interesting to see what's going on there in terms of life. So that's another option that I might pick up. I might sort of try them and see which one I'm vibing with. I have people who watch the channel have watched it in the past know that my main content is my weekly reading updates. And because I'm a slow reader, I tend to talk about the same books over and over again, but that's just what I do. And I do want to keep on with the books that I started. I'll tell you that on that Tuesday. So there'll be one I'm sure to finish, and the one I started, hopefully I can finish. And actually one of them that I'm reading kind of also fits the prompt, because it's a German romantic fairy tale. And all of the romantic fairy tales are kind of from the same time period, so early 19th century. Not Victorian England, but before, or Victorian times. The last prompt that I'll talk about is read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen. And so I didn't bring it in, but I was sort of thinking I should finally read a novel by Walter Scott, because he was one of her main contemporaries, and kind of, a much bigger name back then than he is now. She has definitely eclipsed the likes of Scott, I would say, for most people. So I have Ivanhoe on the shelf, and I wanted to ask people, have you ever read Walter Scott? And I do remember that my mother really liked him, and she was, of a different generation for sure. She read him growing up in the mid 20th century. She liked Walter Scott. So I have a feeling, I'm not sure if I would like him as much. I don't know, because it's sort of more swashbuckly and, less about women. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. So Walter Scott was one option there. And read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen. I was looking at other ones. There's Charles Brockden Brown and other people, but no one that can now exactly remember. So I think the contemporary one, so read a book by a contemporary of Jane Austen, will have to be, who could I go there? Yeah, well, I'll get back to you on that. It's hard for me to do challenges. I'm not used to doing challenges. I'll think about Scott. Maybe I will try Scott or someone else. If you can recommend a contemporary of Jane Austen. Oh, I remember. Well, yeah, all the romantics, they fit. And then also some of Goethe fits. So he was born 1749 and he was writing. He wrote Werther, his novel, 1776. But then things like Elective Affinities, which is kind of, in a weird way, Austen-esque, but not really, because it's weirder. That would fit. His strange novel about these two couples. I'm not quite sure when it was written. So some of Goethe would fit. And yeah, a lot of the romantic stuff would fit too. So yeah, I'm excited. I know I've said a little frazzled here at the end, or a little confused, but that's just me. I wanted to show you my last Jane Austen copy that I have. So these are my penguins. I kind of wish the Oxford would do Jane Austen, but apparently they don't do Jane Austen. So, and actually one thing I'm interested in, the introductions. Most of my introductions are by Tony Tanner, critic, who I think also wrote a book about Austen. And then there's also an introduction by Margaret Drabble. So she's an author I'm kind of interested in reading, or a novelist. No, this is someone called Ronald Blythe. So what I might do is, I can't read them all, but might read the introductions of all of these and see what they say, because they're usually really good, the Penguin introductions, as I recall. And then this is actually the first one I actually read Mansfield Park in this tiny little edition with very, very thin pages, but actually pretty big font for such an old book. And this was my mother's copy of Mansfield Park that she loved too. And I really, really, as we say in German, handlich. Like, it's very easy to read this. You just kind of open it up and read it. And I there's an interesting video coming up where this will be under discussion, this novel, which actually is, still, from what I remember, is still my favorite Austen, is Mansfield Park. Closely followed by Pride and Prejudice, and then a bit of a gap between that and the others. What's my number 3? So Mansfield Park, Pride and Prejudice, probably Northanger Abbey, Sense and Sensibility. Oh, Persuasion. No, Persuasion is in the top 3. Persuasion is number 3. So Mansfield Park, this is to end this rather scattered little video, my ranking as it is right now is going from the bottom to the top. Emma is number 6, Sense and Sensibility, Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park. This is the ultimate order. This is my order. And yeah, anyone can comment on their order too. It's part of the fun thing of her 6 novels. I think that's it for today, and I'm excited for this read-along. Readathon. It's a readathon with some read-alongs. So yeah, and I will update you periodically. I might even do a reading log. It's all kind of fun. I'll see what other people are doing. And yeah, if you're new here, welcome. And older people who've been watching, tell me if you're going to participate at all. I mean, as they always say for the readathon, the main thing is to read something by Jane Austen. And so if off the cuff recommendations, if you've never read any Jane Austen, read Pride and Prejudice. If you've read Pride and Prejudice, Persuasion is good, Sense and Sensibility is good, Northanger Abbey is funny. Or dive into one of the reasons I like Mansfield Park is that it's her most Victorian novel, I think, that's just a sort of a quick way of giving it a description. Okay, that's enough for today. Thank you all for watching. I'm excited, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye-bye.